Good morning. So, put this away. It's wonderful to see everybody, wonderful to be here. I love being part of this family, and it's a privilege for me to be part of this family. Nice to see some faces we haven't seen in a while as well. It's fantastic as we all start figuring out this post, whatever last 2 years life. It's awesome. So this morning I want to start with an announcement. I'm really excited to make a bit of an announcement to start my preach this morning. We're very excited as a team here. We're going to be launching Vineyard Communities in the next few months as a church. And what this is basically weekly spaces made available for you to join, to belong, to grow, to pray, and to eat together. I just saved the best for last. Fellowship with other Jesus followers is essential to living a Jesus-centered life. And I just want to say something. Fellowship with other Jesus followers that are part of your own family of faith is a very important part of your walk with Jesus. There's no such thing as private faith. There's no such thing as elite faith, where a whole bunch of other people just gather only from other churches and gather and have holy huddles and kind of talk about, how their churches can improve. That doesn't exist, because community is about the people that we gather with, the people that we've chosen to belong to this family of faith. And then everybody is invited. So pay attention. For the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about how this is going to work practically. We're very excited about this. We really feel that this is something that we have a unique journey in this regard, with regards to the community life in our church. And we're very excited and expectant for God to use these community spaces, these community groups, to help us connect, grow, but more than that, develop a deep fellowship around the person of Jesus. This morning, I want to talk about the me problem and the us solution. We have a me problem in this world. I am the problem. You are the problem. No, joking. We have a me problem. The world is moving further and further into the abyss of individualism. It's creeping up in ways that we don't even realize that it's creeping up in ways. Language that we're starting to use, we don't even realize how influenced we are by the individualistic message that so often the Western world is kind of pushing down our throats on a daily basis. And this is not something on the left or the right, this is something across the spectrum. We are obsessed with ourselves as a human race. We are obsessed with our appearances. We are obsessed with our input that we can have to be better. Self-help books. It's like getting bigger and bigger in every bookshops, but isn't it ironic that the self-help sections don't diminish? Surely, if they're helping people, there wouldn't be need for more self-help books. And we're also obsessed with this new notion of what freedom is. It's all about me. It's not about the collective. It's about me. And so there's all sorts of reasons. I'm not going to get into that today. But basically, I can sum it up that from about the 60s and 70s, there's been a decline, a steady decline in any form of community, social club, and group. So for those of us who think that, the real problem of today is the decline of the church, it's not the decline of attendance to church, it's the decline of people being part of community groups, part of clubs. So it's like the bowling club down the road, the community's decreased. There's a little bowling club just up the road from where I live, and the membership has shrunk. The Durban Country Club, the membership is shrinking, maybe for other reasons, but the reality is all of these community spaces that have been available to us since the 60s and 70s are decreasing. And that's something that we can track and we can see. Have you ever tried to cut a tomato with a butter knife? Frustration level 442%. It's very difficult. Because certain things in life are designed to accomplish certain tasks in life in a certain way. Other things in life are not made to accomplish such tasks, like a butter knife trying to cut a tomato. You might get there in the end, but the tomato is not going to look how you want it to look. It's going to look like a murder scene. I remember as a kid, I wanted to fly, which is quite ironic given my current fear of flying. But I wanted to fly. And I had read a book, and I'd seen in this book that the character in the book had got some kind of balloon thing and had run and jumped off a high ledge. And I looked at this, And I thought, I can do this. So I grabbed a whole bunch of packets back in the day when they were plastic, and they're still plastic, but you know what I mean. And I put a whole bunch on my arm on either side. And for those of you who remember what our old Edge Court house looked like, there was 2 levels. There was a ledge, and I thought I'm going to jump from that ledge to that level, and the air is going to fill up the packets, and the packets are going to float away into the atmosphere, and I'm going to have a fantastic flight. Well, it didn't work, because packets are not designed to help humans fly. It's just a fact. In the same breath, as human beings, we were designed for community, for relationship, for love and acceptance of other people. We were not designed for isolation. We were not designed for a life of me. We were designed for a life of us. In fact, when we read in the first few pages in the Bible, God says, one of the very first things He said, it's not the first thing He says, but one of the first things God says, it is not good for man to be alone. Because He knew that He had designed us for relationship. And so He created Eve for relationship, for community, doing life together. In fact, just a little bit earlier in Genesis, we find out that we as human beings were the product of relationship. Where we read, it says, "Let us make man in our image." It tells us right there that we were made in the image of the Trinity, the mystical and mysterious and eternal relationship between Father, Spirit, and Son. The relationship, the communion, the true community. We were made in the image of us. We were not made in the image of me. And then we come to know Jesus, and we are baptized with the Holy Spirit, and we are baptized with water into that community. We join that dance. I'm not going to say it correctly, but it kind of sounds like the Parachelisia Walashla dance. Okay, it's something like that. There's a Greek word. I'm not going to say it again because you're going to laugh at me. All right, and what it means is it's the dance of the Trinity, the dance between Father, Spirit, Son, the eternal dance of relationship. We enter that dance. We enter that dance. We were designed to thrive in community. Doing life alone as a Jesus follower is as foreign to the way of life that we have been called to as trying to use packets to fly. And as a church family, what we want to do moving forward, we want to build community together. We want to build the habit of community, the habit of gathering together. Now, I have to say, this is not a reaction to the last 2 years. In fact, we were just about to get going with this, and then the last 2 years happened. But we're wanting to shift the gears in the Vineyard Church in Durban, shift the culture from attending Sunday mornings to the culture of belonging to family. We want to shift from a culture of attendance to a culture of belonging, to a culture of rocking up to a meeting to the culture of gathering with family. Church on a Sunday is 1 hour if you're lucky, or maybe 2 hours if you have some coffee afterwards. That leaves us with maybe, let's just say, 2 hours of church on a Sunday morning. That gives us, for the rest of the week, 166 hours to be Jesus followers. We know that we can't just be a Jesus follower for those first 2 hours. There's 166 hours where we are called to be Jesus-centered, Jesus apprentices, practicing His way, doing life His way, and that actually means doing life in community. You see, our challenge is that community, as lived out and experienced by Jesus and His early disciples, is very different to our understanding and experience of community today. We don't have a really good idea of what real Jesus community is in the modern and Western world. And this just hit me, and I'm adding this in now. One of the main reasons is we are cynical about the big group. Cynicism is one of the main reasons that robs us of the ability to be Jesus-centered followers of Jesus. Because cynicism is all about what I disagree with and how I've been hurt by certain things. And so what does it do? It robs me of the ability to have Jesus at the center. So friends, this morning, if you are sitting here and you're going, "Oh, I've heard this before. We've done this. It hasn't worked." Get rid of the cynicism in your heart. Let Jesus wash through you and hear what He has for you. You see, we mistake, as John Mark Comer says, connectivity with community. We mistake connectivity with community. In other words, we think that being connected via technology can replace real face-to-face conversations and relationships. Or a blasé approach to community where we walk past somebody and say, we must connect soon, man. Now, I know that this has been a pressure point for so many of us, especially in the last few years due to obvious COVID-related reasons. But I want to just say, our lack of wanting to do community as human beings has got nothing to do with the last few years. It's got everything to do from the very beginning when the devil came to stop community. The first thing he did was he interrupted community in the garden. Technology has helped us remain connected to each other during what has been some dark moments in the last little while. Dark moments of isolation. It's been tough. We know that. We know that. So it has been a gift. But you see, the problem we now face is the very real reality that we are now starting to see an online world as a healthy substitute for a real in-person relationship, a replacement. Has anybody, this is with all due respect to people who have tofu, but has anybody replaced the lacquer piece of lamb with tofu before? Huh? Anybody tried those like milk substitute things? Hey? Now, I have a wife who can't drink milk, so she has oat milk, okay? And she thinks it's great because she hasn't had cow milk for quite a while. But you see, substitutes are often never really going to match up to the real thing. But sometimes they do help us survive in certain moments. And so as we start to thaw out, as we start to get back into what real life now looks like, we must remember that we were created for meaningful face-to-face community and not just comment sections. Now, I know that this is hard for so many of us on one level, and I know in the exact same breath it's not hard for others of us at the same level. There's a colliding set of ways of doing life when we talk about this online life. But what I would like to say this morning is that pastorally, as a team, here at the Vineyard Church in Durban, we are very aware of the tension that people are facing today. And we will continue to love you where you are at and continue to help you follow Jesus so that you can practice His way and be an impact in the world that He's called you to have an impact in. And this is one of the reasons why we're going to be going and opening up these community spaces around the city for us as a church to fellowship together, to belong together, to grow together, to build the habit of gathering together, to develop the culture of one another, because we are better together. The other mistake we make with community is we sometimes confuse chemistry for community. We like sameness. We want to be with people that are like us, that make us feel comfortable, that make us feel safe in a warm and fuzzy way, a space where everybody agrees with us. But let's just take a look at the list of Jesus' 12 disciples, which many would argue is one of the key archetype examples, the zenith example of what a community could look like, because Jesus was really there. There wasn't a great amount of chemistry in that space. First of all, his traitor was in the group. The traitor was in the group. Second, Simon was a zealot. Zealot is an old-fashioned word for terrorist, which was something that a whole bunch of people wanted to do. They wanted to be terrorists in the day of Jesus. Why? They wanted to overthrow the Roman government, wipe them off the face of the planet, and anything that helped that Roman government stand on its feet, they wanted to sluck it at the knees. They wanted to destroy Rome and all that it represented. And sitting next to him was Matthew, a tax collector, who was on the payroll of Rome. Can you imagine the common ground that they had? And then you had James and John. They just liked to fight everybody. And then they even went behind the back of all the other disciples with their mom and tried to organize and book seats next to Jesus in eternity. And then the other disciples got indignant with them because they had done this. This wasn't a group of people where it was all lovey-dovey and there was all sorts of kumbaya songs all the time. Sometimes these guys wanted to have a little bit of a box. What was the common factor? Jesus. Jesus was the common factor. There was complex diversity. And we have complex diversity coming out of our ears in South Africa. And we struggle with this. We know this. We have a complex history in this country. And we have a complex history with diversity. In fact, the world right now is having a very complex time dealing with diversity. Some countries in the world are wanting to ban anything about Martin Luther King or Harriet Tubman or any form of struggle or oppression, because it might make them feel a bit bad about what their ancestors did. And so that just points to the fact that we don't really understand how to do diversity well. I mean, what about this picture of eternity in Revelation 7? It says, I saw a vast crowd, too great to count, from every nation and tribe and people and language, standing in front of the throne before the Lamb. Every nation, every tribe, every people and language. It's going to be pretty awkward for those people trying to build walls this side of eternity, eh? They're going to get there. Oh, they climbed over the wall. They're here with me. Because we don't really know how to do diversity well, because we really like chemistry. I like it. I like to be around people that I like. And I'm not saying that we have to be intentional about making community hard and we whoop ourselves over the back with it, and it becomes this like, oh, I've just got to go and it's going to be so tough. No, at all. We grow when we are with people that are not like us. We grow. That's how we grow. In fact, the more people that are different to us, the more aspects of the heart of the Father that we encounter. We also think that community must be comfortable, especially when it comes to our schedules. We like to fit it into small boxes available to us in our diary. But we are called in Matthew 28 to obey the teachings of Jesus, to partner with God, to help other people obey the teachings of Jesus. In fact, it's a stronger word than teachings, it's commands. That means living Jesus-centered lives means following the commands of Jesus. That means that the byproduct of Jesus-centered living is living in the image of us. And so today I want to hang around the spirit of Matthew 28. As Jesus followers, we are called and commanded by Jesus to obey the commands that He has given us. Of the greatest of the commands that we were given, Jesus tells us it is to love one another. To love one another. That is the chiefest of the commands from Jesus' lips Himself. Love one another. And He says that to a group of people who disagree ideologically on most topics, the 12 disciples. Can you imagine how complicated the opinions got further and further away? In fact, the letters, all the New Testament letters, I'm just going to make up a stat, but I'm sure Quentin will back me up on this. A very large percentage of the reason why the letters were written was because oaks just weren't getting along. There were different opinions and ideologies all the time. And there was this constant thing. Humans struggle to live within diverse environments. This love is the foundation of the relationships that enable us to share life together as family. With all respect I can offer to Ross Navet, why on earth would I be his friend if it wasn't for Jesus? My other mate, Kelton Lorenz. I mean, where would you find a much older man from Sri Lanka, from origins from Sri Lanka, hanging out with a much younger, good-looking man, origins from somewhere in Europe, going out nearly every night of the week to go watch movies and eat moritori pizzas, and eating pizzas, and then going from pizzas and having chili biltong and going into movies. Why, if it wasn't for the person of Jesus, would we have even met and encountered each other? Jesus is the center of our friendships, and I'm so grateful for that because I got a mate for life. You see, what starts with the followership of Jesus results in the fellowship with other believers. What starts with followership of Jesus results in fellowship with other believers. This is family. This is Jesus-centered family. And the word to describe this is a word called koinonia, which essentially means to commune with one another. It is fellowship together around a table. It is deeper than community as we know. It's not based on comfort and chemistry or connectivity, and it's not reliant on whether we're cynical about it or not. The reality is The Jesus-centered community is the community that we are called to. This is based around the person of Jesus, a diverse family, and we love one another, a love that we only have because we were loved first by Him. We express this life shared together, and that's what the word koinonia means, and I'm going to be unpacking that a bit in the weeks to come. And so I need to make this very clear. This is not a call to community groups. This is not a call even to community. This is not a call to fit into something that we have ready for our church. This is a call to Jesus-centered living. Because out of Jesus-centered living comes community, comes the desire to hang out with other Jesus followers. And I'm going to just go further on this, and the desire to hang out with other Jesus followers that belong to your church, that you didn't choose belong to your church. It's very easy for us to go and have prayer meetings with all the other Christians from other churches that look like us, and smell like us, and talk like us. What about the family that you didn't choose? How are you going to love and express Jesus to those people? Jesus said, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you can ask for anything and it'll be given to you. That's what He said. And I want to focus on the first bit of that. I love the image of remaining in Jesus. There's something about that, remaining in Jesus. There's an intentionality to remaining in Jesus. There's I'd almost want to say, a discipline to remaining in Jesus. When you are good friends with somebody and you're having a lekker time at their house, do you want to leave? When you've gone on that holiday that you think of, when I say, what is that family holiday that you just look back on? I see Win-in-law here. Unfortunately, to all the kids, I think some of the family holidays might have been before they were around somewhere in Europe somewhere. Must be honest, eh? Sorry, children, but the stories of their travels are legendary. I mean, why would you want to leave the place where Haagen-Dazs comes from? Why would you want to leave if you've gone to the Berg? Why do you want to leave the beauty of those mountains where there's no schedule, where you can just chill, you can brow whenever you want to, because you just want to remain there. Remaining in Jesus is like that, but times a lot. Never wanting to leave the presence of Jesus. The moving from the me problem to the us solution can only happen when Jesus is front and center. We can have all the community groups we want. We can have all the prayer meetings we want. We can have all the meals we want. We can have all the conversations we want, and riveting and controversial and uplifting and sad and happy, and jokes could be told. And the friendships could be amazing. But without Jesus, it's just a dinner party. Without Jesus, it's just a structure used to prop up the walk of a Christian. What would happen, friends, if a whole bunch of people who truly believe that Jesus is at the center of their life gathered together with other people who believe that Jesus is the center of their life? And when they gather, Jesus is the center of the gathering. What would happen? What would happen if we spoke about this Jesus? If we loved this Jesus together? You know that a very large portion, if not the entire bit of Scripture, the way that it's written, is really designed to be read out loud to people, a group. Do you know that the letters of Paul were letters that were read out to a community of people? We have no idea how rich community can get in the world we live in today. Why don't we take a chance? Why don't we take a chance? I want to finish in Galatians 5:22, verse 23, the fruits of the Spirit. And now all of you, there's a song that's going through all of your head, the way you remember it, hey? It's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. No? Just me? All right, so then I'll read it. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You know, individualism is so powerful in the world that we live in. We read this and we go, oh my word, these would be amazing to make me a better human. That's honestly, guys, that's how I've read this for years. Okay, I want to be a better Jesus follower. I want to be a better Jesus follower, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat of these fruits so that I can be a Jesus follower. What if I told you that the fruits of these were not for you, but for us? Not for me, but for us. The fruit of the Spirit is love. Love for who? Peace with who? Patience for who? Kindness to who? Generosity? Why? Faithfulness? Why faithfulness? Gentleness? For what reason? Why would we need to be gentle? Self-control? Why? Because this impacts on the way we do relationship. These fruit determine how we are experienced by other human beings. If these fruit are non-existent in our lives, we are not set up well to do real healthy relationships. But if we eat of this fruit, it is clear to see who the beneficiaries are. It's us. It's not me, it's us. We benefit as a community from somebody who is full of love, who seeks peace, who is patient, especially with me, who's kind, especially to somebody like Ross, who's generous, especially to someone like Godswill, who's faithful to their king so that they can express his love for other people. Gentleness, especially with someone like Sarah Lee. Self-control, so that I don't end up hurting everybody around me. All of these fruit impact the way we do relationships. So as we start this journey of followership and fellowship, we must realize that we are in a complex and beautiful family made up of people that we don't really know, wouldn't really want to get to know, maybe even disagree about stuff with, but we love, and this unusual love comes from Jesus, creates an inclusive, community-centered on Jesus, fruit of the Spirit, empowered living, community-centered on Jesus, community-centered on Jesus. And so this is the call. This is the call. As we go on this journey as a family, and I'm going to be unpacking this in the next few weeks even more, and all the hows and all that stuff is going to come. We're going to explain how this is all going to work. But Jesus being center of your life, being center of my life is key. Not just so that you can go and have a nice time during the week with somebody, but that you could be effective in the world. That we can complete the assignment of Matthew 28, to go out, to obey all the commands, to reach the world, to reach the lost, to see people saved, because we're following the teachings that Jesus has called us to follow. Imagine how bland life would be if we didn't get to do it together. Imagine how boring life would be if we didn't get to be with people that were different to us. I'm even willing to be in a community with someone who supports Manchester United. That's how deep of a spiritual work God has done in my heart. No one from Chelsea yet, but United, we're there. And so today, we want to call you, us as a family, we want to call us into this next wonderful adventure of discovering how to build habits of gathering together. And I want to just end with a little story. When I was living in the UK in 2009, I was quite a weird year for all sorts of reasons. I was traveling with a guy called Mark, who was fantastic, and I was there in a very small group of people, and it was like the inner circle, you know? Inner circle's nice. Inner circle's got benefits, you know? So when you travel with Mark, you get the benefits of traveling with Mark. It was a fantastic, fantastic year. Loved it. But even though I was in the inner circle on one level because I was an intern of the guy that led the organization, I was still very lonely. on one level. I was still very lonely on one level. And I actually found myself getting into quite unhealthy habits when I was alone, because people would go traveling, sometimes you didn't always go with, but I ended up for maybe like 2 months, I think it was September and October, 2 months of just getting into bad habits of thinking and just bad habits in general, eating, things that you watch, just bad habits. And I didn't realize what was happening. I didn't realize that I was actually being taken out by what isolation can do to you. What it means to not just be alone, but to feel alone. And it was a difficult time. And then everybody started acting a bit weird around me, and I didn't quite understand. All I wanted to do was speak to Mark. He was the guy that I was there with, and every time I phoned him, he would change the subject. Sorry, got to go, put the phone down, and I was, and then there were 24 hours. It was like the long dark soul of my life, whatever it is. It was 24 hours. I tried to get hold of my folks in Durban, couldn't get hold of them. I had no one to connect with. I had no one to touch base with. I was really not feeling good in myself. I was desperate, and I knew that Mark had phoned me and he said, listen, I'm going to be there to fetch you tomorrow. We're going on a trip to Scotland. I'm like, oh, finally. I'm going to unload on him in the car like you have no idea. He's going to ask me how I am, and I'm going to let him know how I am, Just that's how I was feeling, and we get there, open the boot. There's a suitcase in the boot. I put my suitcase in the boot, close the boot. I've got such a headache, mate. Every sentence ends with mate with Mark. I need to get a coffee on the way. We're going to stop at Starbucks. And so we went to Starbucks, and we're sitting in Starbucks, and we're sitting there, and we're talking, and Mark's being weird. He's just being weird. And he's sitting there, and he's like, mate, how are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm so glad you asked. As I'm about to say how I'm feeling, he goes, oh, mate, sorry. Can you just get me some sugar? So I'm like, yes, I'm getting really frustrated now. I'm quite a placid guy, Matt. If you know me, I'm like a peaceful person, unless you've seen me coach water polo. But apart from that, I'm a peaceful person. And I walk through, and there's this group of people that are just in my way. And I'm like, sorry, excuse me, I need to go get some sugar. And I walk through this group of people, and I get some sugar, and I turn around, and I look, and this lady looks a lot like my mom. And then I look, and this guy looks a lot like my dad. And then I'm like, there's my sister. And there was my family. I couldn't get hold of them for 24 hours because someone had given them cash to come and surprise me. Mark was in on it. Mark couldn't speak to me for 2 weeks because he was scared he was going to ruin the surprise. He made up a fake ministry trip in Scotland, which I actually, no offense, parents and family, was quite excited to go to because I wanted to sell freedom, and I was never able to do that on the hills of Scotland. And I've realized over time, it's taught me how much we need family, how much we need connection, but how often when we are in the depths of isolation, and I'm not just talking isolation like very depressed, everything's feeling dark. I'm talking about like not in the habit of gathering isolation. We will walk through people that are family and not even see them. That is how damaging isolation is for us as human beings. It takes time for us to warm up to family. It takes time for us to thaw out from patterns of isolation. And that's what I want to invite you on this journey for us as a family. We don't know how long it's going to take. We want to invite this entire church group. We want to go on a journey of shifting the culture of just attending meetings on a Sunday morning, which is fantastic and it's wonderful. But maybe in the week, life's lonely. Maybe we need some conversations, and maybe we need to eat together and pray together. And that's what that is. And that story for me is such a strong reminder for us that isolation can be dangerous, can be very dangerous for us. And I want to invite you to join us. So I'm excited for this. I hope you're as excited as I am. Let's stand.